Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and we have the Mrmr.Designs Zero prototype here. Now, why is it called the Zero? Well, it's called the Zero because of the Zero hardware. Now, he's going to try and make it as hardwareless and as simple as possible. He's still working with React on getting the second prototype, and we'll talk more about that towards the end of the video, but he wants to try to make it where there's almost no hardware. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to pull it off or not, but even just like this, the way it is right here, this is fantastic. And let's look at the specs really quick, and then we will get into how it works as a tool. And then at the end, we will talk about it being available and all that stuff. Now, M390 steel, drop point blade, beautiful satin finish. It is a button lock, obviously. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that he's trying to patent his button lock design because this is a new design. So, yes, it's a button lock, but it's a new design the way the button lock is created and the way it locks up. And I did take it apart. I can't speak about what it looks like on the inside, but I will say it is super solid. I mean, rock solid. No play any direction. It never came unscrewed. The pivot never backed out. Never came out. It's just super solid. It is a pretty cool design the way he did it. And the action and detent is great. It deploys very nicely. It has I don't want to call it a minimal flipper tab, but it goes with the design. And it kind of reminds me of the smock, the way it flips, but the detent feels a little bit more solid. Now, there's no jimping on the flipper tab. It is nice and smooth, but you really don't need jimping because the way the leverage point is with the pivot, you're not really needing traction to flip it. It's kind of hard to explain, but it works great. At first, I was wondering, man, would it be better with jimping? But I don't think so. I think it would actually it would probably work against it. But, I guess that's, anybody's opinion. But it works great. The flipping action, super solid, very reliable. The sound is amazing. And when you unlock it, the button does have a little bit of stick. We'll talk about that in a minute, but complete fall shut action. Very, very smooth, as you can see. As soon as you hit the unlock button or hit the button, it drops right down. Nice and centered. And you see that little bit of a bounce. That's because I'm still holding the button. You can let it lock in place by letting go of the button. And it kind of does bounce out, and I kind of hit it back in right there. But if you time it right, you don't have to do that. But if you let go of the button, it will stop. I mean, it's still smooth, but holding the button, there's nothing stopping it from dropping. But you can time it just right. Just like just about any button lock. And then if it does stop, it becomes second nature to kind of just use that finger and push it in. But it's also really easy to time and get right every time. So, awesome design. Like I said, I love how the simplicity of it and how it's... let me say this. Taking it apart was incredibly easy. It came right apart. Super easy to clean, super easy to put back together. And he said that about this. Me and him did a live together. And he was not kidding. This thing is so easy to just take apart and put back together. It makes it to where you don't care. Like, it's nothing to take this thing apart, slap, you'll have it apart and back together in like 2 minutes. It's super easy, very, very simple because you only have the two screws. Two screws comes right apart, two pieces, then you have the blade, the spring, the button lock system, and then that's it. So very minimal parts. Now, the ergos and cutting performance, it's so good. So good. So we have about 13 thousandths behind the edge. And the geometry is really nice on the blade. The performance of it cutting, of this M390 blade, is really good. It passes through materials very nicely. No issues on the cutting. The geometry of the blade is really nice. It just, it cuts incredibly well. Coupled with the ergos. The ergos are what kind of makes it work. In this hammer grip, it's not contoured in any way, but in a way that kind of helps because it has a really good thickness. So in my hand, it locks in. It's not twisting, moving of any way, in any way. So doing repeat cuts, it's really easy and it's super comfortable. I never got fatigued. Never no issues. I didn't feel any hot spots or anything. The clip never bothered me, not even a little bit. So the cutting performance in ergos was just fantastic. It made it where I didn't mind continuing cutting with it. There's times where I'm breaking down a whole, crap ton of cardboard and I have multiple knives to test. And there is knives sometimes, like I just can't wait to get to the next one, and this was one of those knives where I didn't even care about getting to the next one. It just cuts really good. The jimping on the spine right there, it's in a perfect spot, at least for my hand. And you have the choice to be really close to that edge, for your hard pushing cuts, or you can fall back, back here a little bit, use a little traction from the jimping. And the jimping isn't sharp, but it does offer a little bit of jimping. So it's the perfect kind of jimping you would want from a knife. Now, I didn't cut any straps or anything like that, but this does have that, the neutral ergo. So in a reverse grip, I imagine it'd be just fine. Now, the button, in this grip, I'm not pushing the button at all, and I'm squeezing as hard as I can. So I don't think you'll have an issue hitting the button, although there is that little bit of stick. So, we'll talk about that in a second. The blade and steel and heat treat, it's Riet. I did not sharpen it. I did strop it back up, but it's Riet. I've never had an issue with Riet's heat treat. I have no doubt that it's not going to be just fine. Inside, no milling on the inside. I think he might be planning on doing milling. I personally wouldn't. I love the weight of it, but that's me. So it's not heavy. It's just, a great weight. I can feel it solid in my hand. It's not tipping or anything like that. It is handle heavy, but I kind of like that. But that's just me. In and out of the pocket. Oh, no, wait. Utility cuts. Sorry. Utility cuts. Utility cuts work great. No problem with the utility cuts. It is a drop point blade. You don't have to lift up too high to get to it. You don't really lose too much leverage. It's not as good as obviously a Wharncliffe, but it's a great shape. The way the handle goes right here pushes really nice into your palm with no sharp spots or anything like that. So the utility cuts are fantastic. And since it's such a simple design and simple handle, it's really easy to manipulate into different grips if you're doing something where you need to change grips. Now, in and out of the pocket, you can see this thing is such a simple, smooth design. This is a great example of like a perfect knife in and out of the pocket. The clip is just super smooth in the pocket, super smooth out of the pocket. You can do it all one-handed. And that is another beautiful thing about this, is that because the beautiful thing about a button lock is that you don't put your fingers ever in front of the blade, right? You never have to worry about, the blade or the edge coming towards you, right? This is a great one-handed knife. In and out of the pocket, open it up, make your cut, close it back up, put it back in the pocket. It works great like that. Simple goes a long way with this knife. Not only is it from the user aspect, in the pocket aspect, the looks, the taking it apart and putting it back together, everything is just super simple on this knife, and I love that about it. That's kind of the beauty of this knife. Now, let's talk about changes and when you're going to be able to get it and things like that. So he's planning on hiding the face of the pivot if possible. throwing a little magic on it, recessing the button a little bit further, Pro-Tech style, so where it has an insetness, so you don't have to worry about accidentally touching it or pushing it. This one has a little stick right now, so you don't really have to worry about it, but it does pop out quite a bit. And I'm going to go over some things, my preferences here in a second. Adding internal milling for weight relief, I personally wouldn't, but that's on him. Additional internal geometry changes to minimize or hopefully eliminate the lock stick. That's an obvious. Finishing details for different configurations, because he does want to be able to offer different versions. Now, the second prototype, remember, this is only the first prototype. The second one he's hoping to have done this summer. I think he's having a little trouble with React right now, but he's doing what he can, the best of his abilities. But he's looking for about $250 for the Kickstarter. So this is a Kickstarter project, and it'll be about $270, $280 on retail after it's finished for other people to buy it. So you save a little money if you back the Kickstarter, and there will be other options. Now, the lock stick, that is one of the issues I did have. When I was using it, and I used the heck out of this thing. But after putting a bunch of pressure on the blade, pushing it through materials, the stick would get so bad that it was very difficult to close, almost like impossible. I almost took it apart at one point. So, but, that's something he's planning on dealing with. Now, I noticed right after that the button lock stick got better. But if I really crank it out, it gets pretty bad. But I do notice it is getting better and better. And that's how button lock stick goes. Anyways, but he's going to try to have it eliminated to where that's not an issue. And having it recessed will stop you from, if you are squeezing and things like that, from accidentally pressing it, like maybe in the reverse grip. Like I said, I don't have an issue with this button at all, but it's because there's that little bit of stick. Now, if I gently lock it up so it's at its weakest point, I still don't really, right now I can mean to push it. It's not disengaging, but I can feel it almost disengaging, but I'm meaning to do it right now. If I'm just grabbing the knife and pulling it back, for a pull cut, I don't, it just falls in a place where it doesn't really bother me. But that's always something that people worry about. So, next thing, the clip. It's only a right-handed clip. It would be cool if he could possibly offer a left-handed clip, because the one thing with button locks is that it works great for right-handed people and left-handed people. We just use a different finger. I use my thumb. A right-handed person uses their pointer finger. And this button I think would work great. I don't think anybody would have an issue left-handed pushing the button. However, you don't have the clip for a left-handed person, or for people that like to carry in their left-hand pocket. Some people like to carry multiple things or multiple knives, whatever. But the way it is that this side is this, when you lift off the scale, the clip wraps around and goes inside the scale. It's pressed inside there. You can't do that on this side because this side is thicker. You have this seam. It's just one thick piece of titanium there. So the only way to do it is to offer another clip that has longer bars or longer, prongs, whatever. So when it wraps around, it's able to go across here and then down into the same holes. I do think it's possible to do. Just whether or not he's able to offer it, I don't know, but it would be cool. Next thing, and this is my biggest complaint, because I am a sharpener and I look at it based on how it's going to be after use, after sharpening, I'm definitely going to hit the plunge grind sharpening this. First time I really sharpen this, it's going to be sharpened back, and all this is going to wind up getting sharpened, or it's going to wind up getting hit. So it would be nice if he could offer a plunge grind away from the edge with a choil. So, it gives you the ability to sharpen your knife without making it look old after doing the first or second sharpening. So add a choil and then separate the plunge grind from the edge. So you could literally just add a half moon inside there with the plunge grind separated, from here to the edge. That would be ideal. That way you'd have a lot of life to sharpen off of it without it looking like it's super old or looking like it's been beat up. And, there's other reasons why as well. It stops you from hitting your stones when you're sharpening and things like that. But, the blade kind of feels a little small for the handle, but I also think that's also one of the cool things about it because, the blade fits perfectly inside the handle. There's no more room. You can't fit any more blade in there. And you don't want the blade poking out. This is kind of one of the cool factors of it. But, you can't help but feel like the blade is just a little small for the handle, although the handle's a perfect size. So I wouldn't change it, but it is one of those things where the blade does feel a little bit, it feels like it should be a little broader, but that's just probably because I'm used to blades hanging out of the handle, not perfectly inside of it. So not a big deal at all. And like I said, I think it's actually one of the things that makes it cool, especially in use, when you're cutting and everything. I wouldn't mind it to be a hollow grind, but it cuts so good. I'm not complaining at all, but that would be cool. I do think that he's doing incredible work. Anything I could ever mention on this is purely nitpicks. He did an incredible design. I can't wait to see what he comes out with next. He has 2 designs out right now, the Ronin and then the Zero. I think he has a bright future ahead of him. I'd love to see, other things that he's working on. I did see some other sketches and other work that he's working on his Instagram. Also, if you want to see me and him, we had a full live together where we did a complete discussion on all kinds of stuff. So if you want to hear me and him have a full discussion and hear more talking about this, go and watch that live. I'll put it at the end of this video. You'll be able to see it at the end of the video. And yeah, I like I said, I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's done incredible work so far with these prototypes. I haven't tried the other prototype, but with this prototype, I can just tell that he's going to be doing some big things. Sometimes you just know, and this is really cool. So, and I think it's a cool blank canvas too. I think it has a lot of potential in the future, like maybe with the second, third version, whatever, to have frag pattern ones, to have micro milling and things like that. I think that would just be cool. It's such a blank canvas. You have so much you could do, when it comes to milling and things like that. So there you guys go. I love you guys. I'll link everything I can below. Peace.